How you guys doing? It's Randy Richard in the shop. So I got a few things for you. I'm going to run through here today. I have a little history lesson about me. I've got a mystery tool, and I have a tool I use in the shop quite a bit. Works pretty good. So I'm going to kind of run through those right now. So let's turn the camera around and show you. So item one, this is a picture of one of the ships I served on for 10 years, maybe a little more. I sailed in the ranks of third engineer, second engineer, first engineer, and chief engineer. Actually, I said over that time period. No, the second and third engineer times it was kind of before that. So then I was assigned there as a permanent second, and then I sailed through the ranks over those 10-something years. And in those 10 years, I also sailed on a few other ships. So, yeah, but I was mostly assigned to this ship. This was the Exxon Baton Rouge, then later named the Sea River Baton Rouge when they changed the name of the company. This photo was taken by a P-3 Orion, a Canadian P-3 Orion, their territorial water patrol aircraft. Flew over us, 300-400 feet above us. I was actually on board this day. This is in the Straits of Juan de Fuca. We were coming in. It was a wintry day going to Anacortes, Washington. This ship is now Razor Blades, just so you know. It was built in 1971. It was 76,000 deadweight ton ship. Carried at full load about 500,000 barrels of oil. You know, actually it could carry a smidge over 500,000 barrels. It was a steam turbine ship. 19,600 horsepower. So this ship, though, this ship has some pretty good history. You guys all remember the Exxon Valdez, of course. This is the first ship that pulled alongside the Exxon Valdez to start pumping oil to retrieve oil from the Exxon Valdez. They pumped it into the Baton Rouge from the Valdez. This is the very first ship to pull alongside. I was not on board at the time. I was in Portland, Oregon, working on a sister ship. We had 3 ships that were all identical, built in the early 70s. They were excellent ships. It was one of the finest ships I ever sailed on. And I'm not speaking out of bias either. I sailed on World War II built ships to newer ships than this, a lot newer ships. So I sailed the gamut. This ship also was the very first steamship to be certified by the ABS, that's American Bureau of Shipping, and the Coast Guard, for a steamship to run as an unattended engine room. And I played quite a major role in that, in developing the automation from development to installation, and I ended up supervising most of the installation on this ship, and I supervised the 2 sister ships. And this ship we did in while we sailed it, actually. Most of it, a little bit of it was tied up while we were tied up in New Orleans for the last part of it. And then the other ships, one ship we did in Portland, and the third ship we did in Singapore. So that's why electrical and automation and things like that I have pretty extensive background in. So that took a few years to do all that. So anyway, so this ship was pretty special to me. Had some good friends on there. We sailed all over the world in it and had a lot of fun times. So there you go on the ship thing. I was you know, you work your way up through the ranks as far as third engineer, second engineer, first engineer, chief engineer. And that took me, from the time I got out of school, I had a third engineer's license when I left school. It took me 7 years to get my chief engineer's license. You have to have a year of sea time in a rank before you can take the next test. The Coast Guard was a regulatory body. And it took me 7 years and like 1 month to get my chief engineer's license. And I ended up having a chief engineer's license, steam, diesel, and gas turbines, unlimited horsepower, unlimited tonnage. So I could sail as a that means I could sail as a chief engineer basically on any ship in the world built today. All right, next thing. Let's show you a tool. This here is a Strobe tachometer. It has a nice little liquid, not liquid crystal, not LED, I guess, old LED that read out. Strobe. Actually works really well. So you can see it strobing. Has a pot on the back. And you can see the readout. So you can control the frequency. Oh, what's it max at? Maxed out pretty high. Four, 5,000. Pretty high. There we go. Max. It'd be 68.19, 68.20. Down to 0. Then I'll use this to check speeds on things, on the lathe, the mill, and such. Eventually I'm going to put a tachometer on the lance lathe. I find that quite handy with the VFD type thing, having a tach, because you can adjust it anywhere. That way you know more what speed you're running. So anyway, this thing is pretty old, but it works really well. Strobe. Hope you guys can see that. Anyway, so that works pretty good. So I had a few questions about my reference book. Didn't have it here. So this is a binder I use here in the shop. I've made up that just has all sorts of good stuff that you use all the time. And I've got them in sleeves, most of it. So I don't care about getting this dirty. I can always print out new ones. And I don't like dirty books if I can help it, pages. And stuff in the books you don't need all the time. So this is more stuff used like constantly. And yeah, you end up remembering a lot of stuff, but you don't remember everything. And most of the stuff I got off the internet, and I'll post the websites at the end or something. Anyway, this is just the manual for my DRO. I have a DRO Pros 2-axis mill DRO. Works excellent. I'm extremely happy with it, and for the price, you can't beat them. Lots of good functions to it. It can, well, you see me do the angle thing. It will do bolt circle calculation, radius, so you can mill a nice radius curve, angled bolt screw line, hole lines if you want. Anyway, it does a lot of. It'll divide, do some math for you as far as sine, cosine, tangents, and things like that. Finding the center of something, you can just hit a button, boom, half the distance. When you do the center finder on each side, and it'll tell you right where the center is and stuff. So it's pretty handy. I mean, for a mill, just you can't beat it. So it's pretty good instructions. You have to you have to practice a little bit, to understand how they do it and things like that. But they're pretty good. So, and here's a quick cheat sheet, plasticized cheat sheet. This one here is a thread screw drill tap chart. Now, I'll tell you where I got the stuff, but like I said, I'll put the list of websites on the end of the video. This is www.shender, SHENDER the number 4.com. Schender4.com. There's a lot. That website has a whole pile of great information that you can print out and get spreadsheets and stuff like that. This is just one of the standard tap and drill type charts. Like it goes from 0 to 1 inch. Gives you 75% thread, 50% threads, drill sizes for each pitch, clearance holes if you want a tight fit or a loose fit, free fit they call it, what size hole to drill, things like that. Pretty good. Okay, another spot is the Carbide Depot. There's a lot of information on their www.carbidedepot.com. They sell inserts, stuff, so cutting tools. But there's a lot of other information they provide on that website. This is just some math. I have to put my glasses on. For this one here is just for drill hole size, metric, and inches, and stuff. So for taps, if you have to calculate it out. So basic for major diameters, for cutting something down to size if you have to calculate it. This one here is a chart. Now this is on the Tool and Die Guy's website. It's the toolanddieguy.com. I think you got to be a member to get it. I became a lifetime member a while back, and so I have lifetime access to the site. He puts a little bit out on YouTube. He has a lot of good videos. You can learn a lot from it. Especially, I really liked his series on the surface grinder. He shows you a lot of good setups and a lot of ways to do stuff. The guy's very smart, very talented. He shows you a lot of good stuff. Yeah, you got to pay some money. He makes some money out, but yeah, it kind of supports him to do this sort of thing, I guess, and pass his knowledge on. I'm not all for doing all that, but necessarily. But if you got to do what you got to do sometimes. I mean, I do the monetization thing on my YouTube videos. You make like next to nothing on it, so don't think people make a lot of money on that. I haven't seen that. You're lucky if you make $100 a month. So, I mean, I'm sure some people make more, but I don't. So, anyway, this is a good little chart. This is tells you a socket head cap screws, the size, the clearance drill for a clearance hole, the counter bore diameter, and the counter bore depth, all in one little chart. For socket head cap screws, so that's kind of cool. I use a lot of socket head cap screws. Everybody, I think, does. If you're making tools and stuff, you do use a lot of them. So they're pretty slick. So that's what that is. The Tool and Die Guy. This is one I got off Starrett website. Starrett Tools. This is another screw, and but it gives you a chart for UNC, UNF. Outside diameter, pitch diameter, root diameter, tap drill for 75%. So, decimal equivalent. So, just free reference. Just print it out, This one here, oh boy, where did I get this? Okay. This one came from shopwharf.orcohosting.net NZ thread tube gift. I'll put that up on there. That's a long one, but it's pretty good. I like this one. If you cut a lot of threads on the lathe, you're always going to figure out what the depth of the thread is. So when you're getting close, you can start testing stuff. So this gives you the TPI right here. This is from 2 to 27. This is for your V thread double depth. a V thread, unified thread. That's UN, you know. Thread form, double depth. Whitworth. I never do Whitworth, but I could. But Whitworth double depth. I'm sorry, it's from 2 to 90 threads per inch. This is double here. So V threads, unified, and Whitworth double depth of thread. It can very handy little quick chart to look up. You don't have to sit and calculate and figure it out from the machinery manual. I mean, even though V double depths are listed in there, and maybe unified, but mine's old, so maybe the newer ones have all this stuff. But this is a nice quick one. It's in the book. One day I sat down and I figured out my X feed, power feed on my mill table. So for inches per minute, I measured off 12 inches and I stroked it back. I stroked it back and forth several times in each setting that are definable on the little dial. So I had here 0.8, 1, 1.5, 2, 2.5, 3, 3.5. You know, the little marks on the dial adjustment. And I measured, you know, the time it took to go 12 inches. So I calculated out the inches per minute. Did it in Excel, made a little graph, boom, boom. So I can come out pretty close and estimate my inches per minute for feed rates. That's what that's for. Another Carbide Depot one. This is steel numbering system. So you have an idea of what type of steels you're looking at when you refer to numbers and things like that. What's this one? This is machinability comparison chart. This is kind of handy to know if you're trying to figure out a steel or that you've machined, like you've machined 1018. 1018 has now they compare it to oh boy, well, yep, forgot that. I could look it up. But there is one steel that they compare the machinability to. Well, here 100% machinability is 1212. Okay, so 1018 is 78%. 7018 is pretty soft, really. So just so you know. Here, 12L14. A lot of people like 12L14. Lousy to weld, but has a lot of lead in it. That's what the L stands for. It's 170%. So pretty soft stuff. So anyway, so this is what this chart does. It tells you these sort of things. 4140 is 60%, 66%. And you know, really, it's just not how hard a metal is. There's a lot of terms for metal, for steel, or well, just metals, period. And a lot of people overlook the toughness numbers. Toughness is a measure of how tough the steel is, for especially machining. You may, like those bolts I use for the dovetail cutter. Those are a 4140 or equivalent. They list about, I don't know, 8 alloys that the bolt could be made out of. So 4140 is like the first one they list. So here it's 66%. It's very tough. It's a tough metal. It's not necessarily real hard, but it's tough. And those bolts have been heat treated. So they might be even tougher than that. I mean, you can cut it with if you get the speed and feed right, you can cut it with a high-speed steel bit in the lathe and get a nice finish. I've been using carbide. It's just a lot easier. But now I have a big lathe. I'm going to have to try it with high-speed steel again because you can get a more consistent, and you have the power to cut it because it is tough to cut. So anyway, so that's a good little chart to have. And there's more on back here. Here's some stainless steels, gray cast irons. What else here? Aluminum and nodular iron. So, and tool steels. So this is a handy, very handy little chart. This is more about machinability. Again here. Now this website is QuakerChem.com. they have a lot of what they call skill builder stuff, and a lot of really good information so you can understand like the machinability ratings. And they give you a bunch of more ratings of other materials also. So this is pretty good chart here. What's this one? This is another machinability chart I got somewhere. List. Another machinability guide. Selection. This one here is a machinability guide. Selection of speeds and feeds. So they're listing a bunch of materials and speeds and feeds and depth of cuts to machine that stuff. So another handy little chart here. Oh, what's this one? This one is okay. So now we're down to here about taps and fitting of taps, H2, H3s, you know, all that stuff, that kind of stuff. So this, I was doing something, and I wanted to cut an H3 fit, and so I found this, and this was a pretty good explanation of your the H. Here's H1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and here's L1, 2, and 3. For basic for your basic pitch diameters and how to cut them or what to cut. So, and the tolerances. This I found very helpful if you really want to understand that about your taps, and because you can buy taps and dies different fits, or you're going to cut them on a lathe to make different fits. Now, if you want something that's no play or very little play, you need to understand this stuff. So that's what this whole section here is about that. And I'm trying to remember where I found this. It was you know, the machinery handbook has a lot of this information also. It's but I found this a little bit better to understand actually. Here's tap limits. I'll have to figure out where I found that one. Okay, that was an indicator back. Like I said, those are standardized. You can find these standards and look them up. And so if you need to make an indicator back, or a lot of this other stuff is all standardized. This here is a Morse taper chart. I found that on Wikipedia, actually. Nice little chart showing you the Morse taper, the dimensions. Of course, that's in the machinery handbook too, that information. Oh, and this one's on the Brown and Sharp taper. So same place, Wikipedia. This is some airplane stuff. Instrument hole cutouts, which are standardized also. This is from Aircraft Spruce. This is some general aluminum information. They had on their website different alloys that they sell and that are out there for aircraft use and things like that. So there's kind of some interesting info there. Some more general insert information, designations, and how to figure out what insert what, the angles are at, or things like that, the size and shapes of them. It's kind of a quick reference. This is all Carbide Depot. I think I got all this information from. There's a ton of information out there on carbide inserts, and there's so many different kinds. It's mind-boggling, but you can print these charts out from Carbide Depot. Pretty interesting. This is from somebody else. This is from Kennametal. This stuff. You know, everybody's got their own stuff, so sometimes you need to look at a lot of different things. Even though they do use the standardization on insert designations. End mill troubleshooting guide from Carbide Depot. More Carbide Depot stuff. This is some ANSI standard. Oh, so here's the American National Standards ANSI for carbide inserts. How they're designated and stuff like that. So where was that from? Oh boy. Probably right from ANSI website. Yeah. So you can look that up and see what the standardization is of it. Something about Niagara cutters. But I guess Niagara's got bought out by somebody, I think, or something, or they don't make certain stuff anymore. But anyway, more cutter information. What's this one? I don't know. Oh, milling cutter, cutting speeds and feeds information. Types of cutters, what type of material you're using, things like that. Face mill info. What's that? Oh, different grades. Explain this here. Explains about grades of carbide. You know, your C's, what they're good for. Another copy of that. Oh, this is that bolt. So one more time about the bolt. These are NAS 636A bolts. So here's materials could be, I'm sorry, I was wrong. Yeah, 4140 is a possibility. 4340, 8735, 8740, 6150, and 4140. They could be any one of those. And they're listing the Rockwell hardness of the bolt has to end up being 39 to 43. So it's pretty hard. I mean, not 65, but it's hard, but it's tough. And they don't tell you that, but it is very tough. The bolts have to be tough. This is the one I'm using is a 1-inch with a 12 pitch bolt. It's 3 and it's grip length. I think what they call grip length is. It's the airplane bolts are listed. It's a dash. I think it's a dash 16. So yeah. Anyway, so just so you know, that is the specs of the bolts. I looked it up. These things cost about $100 a piece, just for the bolt. If you want to buy a brand new one. But I have a little bit of an in on those, and I get a few. I don't get very many, but I get a few for nothing through my son there, because they only can use these bolts once, and so when they take a landing gear off one of the helicopters, the bolt gets thrown away, and he grabs them sometimes for me and brings me home a couple. There's 4 per gear, 4 per side on the gear on the helicopter. So yeah, they have to put new ones in when they put the gear back on. Oh, there's a drawing of the dovetail cutter. Okay. And I have also in here a little quick guide for the mills, VFD, yeah, in there. I don't know. Stuff about dimensional pitches. So, anyway, that's pretty much what's in that book. Just to give you an idea. I will put those few websites I know that are on the end of the video. So I do have a couple books. Okay, so everybody knows stare at little charts, and their big wall chart you can get for free. Just go on their website, metric and decimal. You can get like 5 of each of these for nothing, and a chart. So go on their site, order them up. Of course, I have a copy of How to Run a Lathe. I grabbed this off the ship we got rid of. This was a World War II vintage ship. We gave it back to the Maritime Administration a long time ago. Anyway, I was on there as a chief engineer, and I grabbed it. So it says SO Gettysburg, Chief Engineer's Office. South Bend Lathe. So it's an original copy of How to Run a Lathe. Very handy little book. Making my son read it. I have a copy of Machinery Handbook, 17th edition. Boom. Everybody knows about Machinery's Handbook. So, here's my really old book. I have a 4th edition. I think somebody else showed a 4th edition. The American Machinist Handbook, Colvin and Stanley. Well, mine's a little more special than everybody else's. Mine is from my grandfather. There's my grandfather, M.C. Richard, and my father, E.M. Richard, and has in here the dates that my dad started being an apprentice. He started his apprenticeship as a machinist in January 18, 1943. And he was working his way up to he got his first class machinist. Well, the first class, apprenticeship, October 23rd, 1944. Then he became a third class machinist in May 28, 1945. And no more dates on that. He went off to join the army and ended up in Korean War and all that. So then when he came back, I think he went to college and he ended up becoming a banker. My grandfather, he was a machinist at Mare Island Naval Shipyard. Like I said, and ran a machinery shop there during World War II. Worked on submarines a lot. Later on, he worked at Lawrence Livermore Labs, doing machinist, but he also was in their electronics department. Of course, electronics was just starting then. And he was big in the radios, transmission and radio work, and he had one whole room of his house was an entire radio panel for ham radio stuff. He was one of the very first people. There was a big earthquake, I guess, in Mexico back in the 50s, and he was the first one to make contact with what happened down there, I guess, one time. But yeah, he worked at Lawrence Livermore Labs. But anyway, so this is my copy of the American Machinist Handbook. It's pretty special to me. I take good care of it, but boy, if you ever find a copy of this has a lot of information in here that's not necessarily in the machinery handbook. That is pretty interesting. So gear, it's got gear stuff. It's got actually old type bolt stuff that aren't used anymore. Things like that. I mean, it's pretty good. But anyway, so this is my copy. It's got handwritten notes from my dad and stuff in the back here about calculating things. He's taped in a Morse taper, a chart he taped in there. A few other things, a few other calculations about fuel and oil meters. I guess he worked on a lot of fuel and oil meters. So, kind of a neat old book. That's some of my history. So, I worked right today. I mean, I use my toolbox from my grandfather. I use tools that are engraved by my grandfather, my father's, and stuff like that. So I do have a lot of old tools. I still use them. Never throw them away. Okay, mystery tool. There you go. I'm only going to give you one hit. This was made by Hewlett-Packard. I had to cover up all the other stuff. It has a knob. It says rotate for volume and pull out for power. There's a set of headsets. Oops, popped out. You plug that in to listen. And it has this also. And you plug that in. So, and it takes 3 AA batteries. Comes in a nice leather carrying case. But like I said, it was made by Hewlett-Packard. I'll give you that one. This popped out of here. Anyway, pretty old set of headsets. So that's the parts. Give it a guess. So that's it for today. Thanks. Hey guys, I just finished adjusting the tailstock. This is the, I don't know, test bar, whatever you want to call it, that I made up. It's an old motor shaft that wasn't bent or anything, nice and straight. Already center drilled and everything. I checked that out beforehand. It looked like it spun a bearing or something. So I made a couple of aluminum discs for it, pressed them on there, and I made a dog. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you that I've got it all adjusted out, and I'm going to measure them real quick here. I'm going to show you the dog I made. So that's 2-inch. Let's see here if I get it in the frame, huh? I can't read it. 2-inch glare. So that's 2.664. And it's right on that too. It's right on 264. Fresh cut aluminum is kind of sticky when you're measuring it, you know. .664. Just double check that one. 13 and a half. So 2,663.85. So about a half a thousandth, looks like. I think I'm gonna call it good. This took me a little while. Maybe it might have taken me at least an hour fiddling and farting around with that tailstock there. Well, that's a little under 14, so you know, we're talking like 3/10 difference here. Yeah, maybe 3 or 4 tenths. So I'm going to call it good. Anyway, I'm going to pop this out of here. And show you this. So I made it for this. I just drilled a 1-inch hole. The shaft was pretty close to 1 inch. I'm going to take that off of there now. I'm going to find the right Allen wrench. So I just slipped on there. Set that down. There it is, bored hole. I think that's a piece of 3-inch. Yeah, it's 3 inches across, about an inch wide, 3x1. So I put a set screw in there for the shaft. I made this little piece of 1/2-inch drill rod, turned it down to 3/8 so there's a shoulder, and it was just a light press fit. I just hammered it in with a soft blow hammer. Just took a few good whacks and went right in, and another set screw right here to lock it in there. That's it. There's my dog. Doesn't quite look like Roscoe, but we'll call that a lathe dog, I guess. Anyway, this worked really well for that, and I'll throw it in a stack of parts I got around. So there's a quick video of that. And that's about it. Center I trued up. I trued that center up I had. Got the tool rack up. Painted it gray to match the lathe. Got a lot of empty spots. We'll work on getting those somehow. But we got a few tools set up there. So it came out pretty nice. I like it. It's easy reach. Not too bad. And they're right there. I built this one just kind of like the other one actually. Just a single row though. So there's the tool holder.